Hello, friends and brothers. Welcome to Masonic Improvement. I am Dennis Yates, your host, and this is our inner circle, or a representation of our inner circle. Uh, we have about 10 times more than this uh, as actual members of the inner circle, but these are our diehards that come in and bless your week every week. They bless my week for sure. And tonight, what I'd like to introduce is what's called the Four Horsemen of Failed Marriage, and by John Gottman. And the reason I want to introduce this is because I think these same tactics um, are used within lodges, and they're used in all sorts of things, but we can find them in the lodge as well. And in order for us to help ourselves and help our lodges, maybe we ought to be aware of what we do and how destructive it is. Because there's a couple of them in there that, if you can't uh, if you can't get past it, then it's like a 91 to 95% chance of divorce. It's going to happen. So, anyways, without further ado, I'm going to bring up the first one, which is uh, criticism. So you guys, you guys have probably witnessed this before um, in lodges. I know I have in many circumstances, mostly in floor school, but but it gets better once you start learning the stuff. The criticism's not quite so much there, but there can be healthy criticism, which is that which we hope we're providing in our floor schools, and there can be some unhealthy practices that all it's going to do is run people away. And so, do any of you guys that are here on the show right now, do you have any examples of some criticism outside of like floor school that you've witnessed? And I don't want you to say names or anything, or say anything that somebody might see and say, oh, you're talking about me. I don't want to get anybody into a negative issue with their brethren or anything, but just generically, that you may have seen in lodge, or experienced, or seen somebody do with somebody else that drove them away or made you feel like leaving and to never come back. Any of you guys got anything like that?
Well, this is Larry. Yeah, I've had talked about one we've had in our lodge, and you probably aware of it. And of course, it hadn't res- resolved itself, except to the fact that the senior warden that was anyway, he said he's going to step away, and so he's not going to move forward. He's going to still pay his dues, and and he might have something here. He's working two jobs. One, he has a restaurant that he's working, and he's working also another job, and it's what little time he has, he wants to spend with his family, and those are good things to have, and he realizes right now he's just probably in a good time for him to take the east, and so he'll still pay his dues, and we're going to have our fish fry. He'll stay here, go do that, and take part of that and everything. So, but he had his feelings hurt, and I hate that to happen. I really hate that because you know sometimes when somebody gets a feeling hurt and somebody else apologizes and try to set things right, and I'm the type that, I let things bygones be bygones because, I'm not perfect. Even though
Right.
I've never made a mistake. I know I thought I made one time, but I was wrong. But but that's one right here that you have. And it's hate that happen, but Lodge will rock on. So we've already figured out what's going to happen, and the worshipful master is going to he's going to do another year. If and so that's good.
Well, that's
I
a
think we're
that's
in
a
it.
That's a really big one that you just mentioned. That's one that comes up almost every year during election season with many lodges, not just
Right.
one or more, or not just a few, but many lodges have issue. And I think that there comes a time when we do have to look at, the position that we're accepting and the responsibilities that go along with that position, and we have to step back and say, okay, I need to let somebody else handle this, and not try to go after it, even though I know I'm going to hurt the situation. And but on the flip side of that, when you don't make that decision, um, we will hear that criticism from the members of our lodge many times, especially from the past masters, because they've got a they're very vested in the lodge. They're not just members of the lodge, they're vested members, because they are past masters, and they want to protect the lodge at all costs. And but the thing is that sometimes it comes across as really nitpicky and hurtful towards the brother, instead of it being whispering wise counsel.
Mm.
And if a brother steps back on his own accord, that's uh, definitely the best case scenario. But if the problem with constant criticism from others around you, when you really think you can handle it, if it's done in the wrong way, then yeah, you'll lose that brother, and then he won't come back. I've seen that at my lodge in Goliad. I've seen two brothers that did that, um, when there was contention in a vote, and even though they knew it was coming, that it would be contested, it was done in a negative way, and they hadn't
Mhm.
been seen in years.
Yeah.
So
Well, I had something similar to that when I was uh, senior deacon at my other lodge what I was raised in, and that's when they came to me was about to go in is the election time, and had that heart to heart talk that says, okay, we're about to just about to go on a something that's going to require a lot more time, and this, that, and the other. You need to be here more, be here a lot of times, and you think you can do that, and this, that, and yeah. And of course, I realized at that time that's probably I couldn't do that. So I really appreciate that, and they did me a favor because if I'd gone in, then I could have had some hard feelings and so forth, and all of a sudden it can't be here. He's in, and he can't make here, So yeah, that times those times need to be do the brother a favor by doing that. But other than that, our lodge, I'm not aware of any really criticisms going around in our lodge. We're pretty happy.
yeah, hopefully that's the way it is in most lodges. But we do see, especially like I said, around election season, we tend to see when everybody's talking about who's going where, and there's always one guy out there that people have been real critical of as not doing their job throughout the year of this past year. So how are they going to do a good job going forward? How
Yep.
can we entrust this
Yep.
person going forward? Which is valid, but at the same time, that and here and now I'm going to go into the I guess it's called the antecedent or the antidote or whatever for the anti of this sentiment. So we all have ego. Every one of us has a certain amount of ego, and in fact, people with a lot of drive, they have more ego than others. That's what drives them to excel, or to to push forward even when they're knocked down. It's that ego that keeps their psyche going, really. And when you have that nitpicking, like somebody picking a scab, being critical of you all the time, and you pick away at a man's ego, we sure we are trying to be altruistic in life, but at the same time, leaders have to have a certain amount of ego and drive to be able to be good leaders. And so it's all in the approach. That's why we talk about wise counsel within Freemasonry, because we know it's all in the approach. When we are nitpicking and critical of people all the time, that's harmful to a relationship, and it's harmful for the lodge. Whereas if we promote wise counsel and caring and good intent in what we're doing, then most people will come around to it. But if you pick away at someone's ego to the point to where it deflates them, then they're just going to walk away, because everybody needs to protect a certain amount of that to uh,
Mm.
to keep going. Every man does, in fact, for sure. I mean, we all have to have a certain amount of it. To that's what gets us up, and it's that drive that keeps us going, and that's part of our ego, our persona. Anybody else got anything? Go for it, Brad.
So, yeah, I was senior warden at one time, and basically, I went to OLT with a guy who was going to be the leader of the lodge, and we got fired up about the 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 program,
OLT, Officer Leadership Training.
yeah, but it was OLT, but we learned all about the what is the program that you get the certificate for at Grand Lodge,
Oh, Vanguard.
Vanguard.
Yes.
Yeah, so we got fired up about the Vanguard, and we're like, hey, I was like, do you want to do this? He was like, yeah, yeah, that sounds really good. I think it's good for the lodge. I agree. I go, well, if you want to do this, I will make sure that everything gets done and we get the award for you. He was like, yeah. So I kind of took over, and everything I did, I ran by the lodge. Tried to get okays, and just I was very communicative. Sent out emails about updates on every month about it, and about halfway through the year, I got pretty criticized by several people saying that I was running the lodge from the senior warden chair, and I was like, no, I was doing this for the master. Um, and I was like, I never did anything without being okayed with anybody. I was like, I communicated everything all the way. I was like, it just I got criticized for it, and it just seemed like I was kind of being attacked in a way. But I held firm, and I was just like, hey, show me what I did wrong. That way, if I know what I did wrong, it's like because you guys know I'm still a really new Mason. Um, if I did something wrong, please show me so I don't do it. Which they've had to do before. Um, so anyway, that was my that was my example of when I was criticized for doing something that I thought was right.
Yeah, that's a tough one, and that's an excellent example as well. Um, Trying to do too much, it doesn't always set well with some of the other members, and some of them it's strictly because of their ego, because it wasn't their idea. They come down on you because you're helping push it along. I've seen that before.
Yeah,
I've seen that recently, but that's one of the hard ones to overcome in a lodge. People tend to like to uh, most people tend to like the slow steady, the security, and doing things the same way as it's always been, because on the surface it seems like everything's working out okay, but on the underbelly of it can be a different story altogether. But yeah, I can
yeah.
definitely see that. I
Being the
have seen that.
vanguard is a lot to it. You have to do a lot together as a lodge to get it. Most lodges do like 75% of it, but the other 25% that they're not doing, is actually pretty hard to do because you all have to work together to get it done. But you know,
Yeah, if a lodge is receiving a vanguard, it's the lodge receiving a vanguard for sure,
yeah,
and it's a good thing. If a lodge is receiving a vanguard, then they're doing Freemasonry. They're a very well-rounded lodge if they're getting a vanguard each year. That's for sure.
I
Anybody
agree.
else got any ideas on criticisms for those of you who joined us a little bit later? So we're talking about the four horsemen of well, it I I have learned about it through marriage counseling, but I was looking at it and I thought, well, hell, this stuff applies to all. It can apply to anything. You can make it apply to anything, especially Freemasonry, especially a volunteer group. And so we're talking about the four horsemen that will definitely kill a marriage, but in this case, um, we're talking about the relationship of the master mason and the lodge as bride and groom. So what kinds of things will hurt the lodge? But we're on criticism right now. Does anybody else have anything to uh, to add on this one? All right. So moving forward, the next one is contempt. This is a really big one. Feeling like you're superior to other people. You know, because you know all your work or whatever, all the catechism, you're superior than others. Or because you read more books than other people in the lodge, you're superior than others. Or because you raise more money in charitable funds, you're better than others. Um, Contempt is a tough one. It's a superiority complex, and that's where the ego has gone wild. Is in that scenario. Anybody got anything on that one? Bueller.
Yeah,
There we
yeah.
go.
No, sorry, y'all. Forgive me. I'm a little slow tonight and a little out of sorts. Um, but yeah, that contempt, that feeling of uh, I'm doing so much here. How come y'all aren't? Is the way I see that or hear that sometimes. You know, y'all get off of your butts and help me do this thing to make us better. And I feel like while there is some validity in that mindset, if it is not presented correctly, if it isn't presented from a place of humility, that's where you're going to run into real issues with that contempt because it will bleed over and it will poison whatever it is that you're trying to get done. You know, that's that's a lesson that I'm learning now uh, to to be humble, and it's hard sometimes. I don't want to be humble. I want to jump out there and go, hey, come on, let's do this thing. It'll help us all out. It'll make the lodge a better place, you know. And you can just see some of the guys tense up and just dig in and no, we're not going to do that. It's not the way we did it in my year. You know, you hear that time and time again. Um, so yeah, I think I'm just going to drop it right there. I don't know what else to say.
Well, that's a good example. It is. I mean, that's an excellent example, especially bringing up the idea of humility. One of the things as a manager that I used to do, I before this part of my life, um, I used to own some transmission shops, and in managing people, I would always, go around. I wouldn't bark orders. I would ask people to do me a favor. Will you do me a favor? Will you do me a favor? And yeah, there were a lot more favors from them than there was from me, I can assure you. But it was always, can you help me? Can you help me out in this situation? And then, but the on the flip side of that, I was always there for them when they needed my help. They didn't need it quite as much as I needed it from them because I was trying to manage the big picture and they were just managing their part of it. And so they didn't require my help as much as I needed theirs. But um, it's a two-way street. And you have to be humble in asking for help, and you have to be humble in giving help in those scenarios. And frankly, as past masters, saying that's not how it was done in my year, man, that's that's the kiss of death for a lodge. None of us should be doing that. We should all um, we should all realize that this is an organic organization, and it's going to take different shapes along the way because you're going to have different waves of membership coming in and out, that the cultures shift throughout time. And so all we can do is help guide the next generation sometimes. Just make sure we're the biggest cheerleaders for them that we can be, and support them in being successful. And that again, just like with the criticism, it boils down to the intent of the conversations and the intent of the people and what they're trying to get done. Normally, you can see who's out for a title and who's actually out for Freemasonry. You can generally see that in my experience, and it's our job to help bring those guys around to sure, it's okay to receive honors and whatnot through Freemasonry, but um, in fact, I think there are many men that should, because of all the hard work that they put into it. But but when that becomes the goal, instead of being for all those around you, the collective whole, then that's where it can become a problem. Anybody else got anything on contempt?
There was a comment in the on the YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Said Brother Win. He said 2025 was a rough year for me, and my health was bad, and his job was giving him a hard time, and his lodge brothers helped him through it. They were a big emotional support, and he said he loved his lodge.
That's
And that's
awesome.
the good stuff right there, man.
Yeah, that needs to be said more often. I think I mentioned to y'all last week of a similar situation that I was really down and out um, when I first joined, and going through divorce, and the brothers, circled the wagons around me, and I had just become a master mason, and they circled the wagons around me and took good care of me. Yeah, we ought to always remember that stuff.
As far as ego goes, it always amazes me how people trying to angle and politicize, trying to get offices and wanting to be master, because master is such a charged word. And, really in masonry, it's just another opportunity for service, rather than a position to aspire to. It's almost like the thing about being a president. If you want to be president, you're automatically disqualified because no one in the right mind wants to be president. If your ego is such you want to be master just for the title, that's always baffled me. If you really want true uh, veneration in a lodge, and up your cooking skills. Be junior warden, handle the meals, do a good job. You'll be put on so high a pedestal.
Yes, that facts. That is true, and that's why I believe in keeping the stewards in the lodge, and having them do their job, because that is the very first thing that they should learn as a leader, is to serve, and to serve well, and you know try and not just bring in bologna sandwiches. you know Learn a new recipe and provide it for the brothers. I mean, who cares if they're the guinea pigs? As long as they don't throw up during the meeting, then you're okay. You did okay. So they'll come back for the next meeting, but that's a big one. That's a big one. I like that one. And in fact, I just want to add this. That's one of the reasons why I despise the idea of anyone being put into the line right out of becoming a master mason, because and even talking to entered apprentices and fellow craft about the line and you know what those positions represent within the lodge, I don't think that anyone on a Masonic journey needs to be thinking about those things from the beginning, because then it makes that the mindset that that's the path, that's the journey, is to get to the east, right? Instead of it being the journey of self-reflection and growth through brotherhood. That's an excellent point. Anybody else? Come on, Jason.
Me?
Yes.
um, no, I mean, obviously, uh, you should do things with humility, and hopefully, you're doing things for the right reason, not simply to advance or gain clout or try and cement your legacy or anything like that. Um, and I'm a pretty open book, and everybody kind of knows what I'm doing and what I'm involved in, and stuff like that. But I have to check myself every once in a while. And there's a couple of things coming up that my wife and I have talked about. Like, is it something you're planning on doing because you're doing it to because you think you can help, or are you doing it to add to your Masonic resume to pad it for for something else? And I do. I actually, believe it or not, I do actually look at that. And there's some things that I haven't pursued because, to be honest, I would only be doing it just simply um, because I would think it would help me personally. So I do. I try and keep it, and it's hard not to get caught up into all that because when you do something well, you get the accolades, and it's nice to hear. I mean, who doesn't enjoy being applauded and told you're doing a good job, and thanks for doing this and all that kind of stuff. I mean, nobody in their right mind would look at that and go, "Oh, I hate that when somebody tells me I did a like." Come on now, let's. That's not true.
Yeah, false humility is not a good look, is it?
And I have said that several times. I do not like false humility. And there's been a couple of things that I've been awarded, and I am not one to sit up there and go, well, I'm just, I'm just doing this because, what? I did do a good job. And if I was awarded something, it was probably because I deserved it. And that's the honest truth. But my overarching motivation should be to advance Freemasonry, to help others, um, but also, is it contributing to my personal growth? I think is one of it. And to me, even some of the fun things that I do, Grotto, High 12, Highlanders, that's part of it to me. Is yeah, I'm involved in Scottish Rite, New York Rite, and esoteric training and teaching and studying and learning and stuff like that. But um, I think there is a place for those other organizations, and I do feel like that also is contributing to my personal my personal growth, right? So, but yeah, stop and check yourself every once in a while and figure out, what is my what truly is my motivation for doing this. So
That's a good one.
that's all I have for now.
That's a good one. Yeah, a lot of y'all may have noticed that I've stepped back from a lot of things over the past couple of years, and that's why, because I felt like I was not um, getting the personal growth that I needed from the things that I was taking part in. I was just getting accolades from taking part in those things. So I've stepped back on a lot of things for that very reason.
Somebody said in the chat, and you could probably guess who it is, that they said Jason is more of like a spreadsheet than an open book.
Yeah. I know exactly who that creeper is. He won't jump on here, but I know exactly who that is. In fact, after the show, if everybody will stay on for a few minutes, he's going to jump on with us. Um,
Yeah, I'm looking.
um, anybody got anything else on contempt? Because that's a big one. I think it I think the bottom line is when we live in contempt, we have forgotten what or stopped looking at what contributions that others provide. When we become the center of attention in our own narrative, then we don't see anything that other people are doing. And it can also go a different direction to where, you know, we have a pity party all the time because we feel like we're doing so much and everybody else is not giving us the praise that we deserve. But contempt can be a big thing when we don't
So, I'll,
remember why we cherish people within the organization we're in.
so let me come out with another perspective. You know, instead of us having content for things we're doing in the lodge, how do you deal with those people that show content because they think they have helped the lodge so much, then they should be running the lodge and doing whatever they say to do?
Oh yeah, the past masters and then the grand masters of the districts.
Yes,
Is that who you're talking about? The guys who believe that
that's
they're the grand
exactly
masters
who
of
I'm
the
talking about.
districts? Yeah,
Grand Masters of the District, yes, sir.
that's that's a big problem. You've always got those few that have been doing things for so long. They're afraid to give up those reins and to give anybody else an opportunity to be successful. They have to continue to be the sun that the lodge evolves around, right? Yeah.
Yep, 100%. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that in your lodges?
Well, in part, and one of the things that I've seen, and then I'll get to your actual question. One of the things I've seen, and it's sad, honestly, um, especially especially when they're they're older. Well, I mean they're older, but obviously they've been in the East probably two or three times, but they're hobbling around, and can't, really do much, but they are still insistent on being, they're going back into the line because they just can't let it go. And what I've seen is you go from being um, revered to pitied, and is like, there he is, he can't barely do the ritual, he gets lost during the meetings, but he's junior warden, and he's gonna go because he wants to make sure the lodge stays on the right path. And it's, I mean, you're like, it's, you've gotta know when your faculties are such that you're not able to. And it's part of it. One of the things I do understand is most of the time these guys are usually widowers, and they don't have kids at home anymore, and their grandkids are off somewhere else. They're not. They're just not in that so this becomes all they have. So part of it I do feel for them, and I do understand. Um, so how do you deal with that? To me, is um, you stay respectful, you stay respectful of them, but ultimately, you've got to the lodge has got to decide things on its own, and if a vote comes up, the lodge needs to vote the way the lodge feels like it should go, not just because this one guy says, no, you shouldn't do that or you should do that. Um, at some point, they will get the message, and you've got to put the work in to where you know you yourself and some of the others who feel like that the lodge is in good hands. We've got this. Then you've got to just you make your decisions just solely based on what you feel is best for the lodge, not what's going to make this one guy mad or happy or whichever. But you do continue to respect his opinion. You listen to him. You don't block him out of meetings. You don't disrespect him in front of everybody. Um, but ultimately, at some point, he will eventually realize that he just does not have the authority anymore, um, to run the lodge, um, and stuff. But
Well,
it's
and go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt.
no. I mean, I just it's, and I hate to say it this way, but you some of them you ultimately just kind of have to, for lack of a better term, you have to defeat them simply by having better ideas and putting in more work than they're doing. And eventually the others will see that and they will gravitate towards that. And because there are those that just they will never give up. They won't. Their ego will not allow them to, and you just have to put in more work than they do, and and convince others to be on your side. Um, try and maintain as much respect for them as you can, but ultimately, you just have to convince others that the path that they're trying to keep you on or trying to take you down is not where the lodge needs to go. So,
Yeah, that's one of those situations to where it's very difficult to manage, but you always have to take the high road on your end, no matter what. You always have to take the high road. You don't talk bad about the predecessor. You always have to um, keep that form of humility, that humble sort way of communication open with everyone to where um, you sing him praises for what he's done in the past, but then say, but this is the direction we're going now, and we could really use your support. The most important thing is getting the support of the lodge in everything you do. That's I think that's one of the things that I've noticed myself is when lodges are run without lodge vote, it becomes a dictatorship on whoever gets in the East. And when it becomes, when everything, the worshipful master uh, is the hard stop on anything instead of it being the lodge is the hard stop on anything, that's where you run into your problems. So the best thing you can do is create a culture within the lodge that to where there's not these backroom discussions and things like that. Transparency is always brought before the lodge in lodge meetings, and not um, letting people plot behind everybody's back and on what's going to be done about certain things and this and that. I mean, and that's a tough thing because they're going to be plotting behind everybody's back on how to get certain things done because that's what they know. But we have to be on the up and up and show a more positive way of doing it for people to gravitate towards it. Eventually, they'll leave that negative guy behind and gravitate towards the positive. That's what happened to me getting in the becoming a secretary, is that the secretary at the time was trying to be the hard stop of the lodge and be the conscience of the lodge, be the deciding point of the lodge, and be everything of the lodge, and everybody had to do what he wanted, um, or there was chaos within the lodge. And so just having a positive outlook and being willing to help in any way that I could, people were more drawn to turning that over to someone new instead of going through that continuously again. And things have improved since then. Now it is up to the lodge, and everything that comes to the worshipful master or anybody else, when they talk to me about it, I tell them that's a lodge vote. The lodge has to decide on this. That is not your decision. It's a lodge decision. Don't hold secret meetings up at lodge, without being a called meeting and without being in a stated meeting, trying to organize what you're going to try to push as an agenda. That's not the way to manage effectively. And you may get a short-term win, but that's not a long-term solution for the culture of the lodge. You have to make it all about the will of the lodge. It's kind of like us with being the Grand West, and everybody being so upset about what's happened with the library and museum. I mean, the simple fact that the vote was taken away from the Grand West is the main thing. That's the main thing that people are pissed about, is that it wasn't our decision to make those changes. And those people will continue to lose the respect of more and more Masons as they go, the longer this drags out. But that's a good one, Josh. The Grand Masters of the District. Woo!
I would hope that is a thing that will come up next Grand Lodge meeting.
Well, I
Because
hope it gets settled before then. But yeah,
needs to be something
yes,
decided.
yes, for sure. Y'all ready to go on to the next one? Okay. So, well, before I go on, let me give you this one last thought before we go on to the next one. Remember what you respect and love about those people, and remember what you respect and love about your lodge whenever it's the lodge decision and it's something that you didn't want. Just remember, you're doing it for the right in the right way if it's a lodge decision, if it's going to a lodge vote. So you have to accept it, and just remember the will of the lodge is organic and can change. It's not always going to be the same. So whatever the will of the lodge is, that's the very most important thing. And when it comes to individuals, just try to remember what you love and respect about them and what they contribute, and try to look over their other transgressions. All right, so here's the next one. Defensiveness. Anytime anybody's got something to say, anytime someone wants to offer wise counsel, you've always got a rebuttal. You can't take it in because you're too busy defending your stance. Or I'll say it in my way. I can I can't take in the wise counsel because I'm too busy stating why I believe it's the right way to do it. And I think that I have fallen short on this one myself. This one's a big one for me too. This one, all of them are hard for me at different times or another, but this one's a really big one. I can get defensive when I think, are you freaking crazy? There's no way that this is going to work this way, and you want it to be this way. Anybody else got any thoughts on being defensive and how that can hurt the relationship of the lodge and its members?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, for certain, if you simply defend something just because somebody said something different, um, generally, believe it or not, I actually try to. Uh, I do actually try to listen when other people have ideas, and not dismiss them out of hand, because I have always taken the approach that am not I am not the smartest person in the room usually. More than likely, uh, somebody has got a better idea, or somebody has done it before, or they've tried whatever idea I might have. Maybe that's already been tried before and it didn't work. Maybe they'll try it. Maybe it'll work again. But for certain, you will run into those people that it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter what you if you disagree with anything, they automatically just put up a wall and act like, how dare you question what I've said. That it's I have said it, and that makes it true. My ex-wife. So I did not say that.
I think that's
Um,
all wives.
no, it's not all wives. I love my wife very much. um, but yeah, in the way, and I think the way to um, counter that is to realize that you're most people are not nearly as smart as they think they are, and that's myself included. There are times when I've come up with stuff, and I'm like, I am absolutely genius. And then there's other times when I've seen a picture on Facebook and it had a goat inside of an egg, and I said, "Oh, no, goats aren't born with horns. They're also not born in eggs either." So, you know, I always catch myself in a little bit of humility, but it is a tough, because you want to contribute and you feel like you've got good ideas, um, but realize either it's probably been tried before, or there's somebody else out there that um, is smarter than you on a particular subject or something like that. So try and listen to it. Now, the only time I really get defensive is if anybody uh, says anything against my wife or my children. I will 100% every single time take their side, no matter what, period. Now, in private, we may have a different conversation, but in public, you say anything cross against my wife or one of my family members, or even a good friend of mine, even Dennis, I will 100% take their side, even if they are 100% wrong. They're still right, and then I'll deal with it later if they are actually wrong.
I agree.
And
Now,
yes, I have a party going on over here.
I could tell. I was waiting for the. But man, I tend to agree. I think that that's the stance that you have to have, and that's a good stance. That's a stance that good leaders should take. is that, in public you're gonna support those who support you always. In private, that's when well, that's the whole idea of whisper and wise counsel, right? It's, in public you praise, in private what's in private you, I wouldn't say criticize, but you critique. Anybody else got anything on that one? Well, since not, I'm going to state a little bit more on that, what I believe on that one. And it really, I learned a lot of this during a talk I was listening to today. And but I do believe in this. And usually when defensiveness is defending mediocrity and weakness, that's the when you're defensive, you're not admitting to your weakness or mediocrity. So if you're doing something that's either lacks motivation um, or lacks weakness, and somebody points it out to you, or not lacks weakness, or shouts out weakness, um, something that is not one of your strong suits, and somebody points it out to you, and you automatically get defensive. That's what you're doing, is you're defending mediocrity and weakness. And that's deadly. That's deadly. That's where that's not how we've always done it. Comes into play in a lodge, because when someone says that, they're defending the mediocrity that has caused the lodge to slowly dwindle, instead of supporting new ideas, fresh ideas that may help the lodge. We see that a lot in our lodges, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the easiest thing to do is do nothing. And people, I think you're right, because when you start doing a new idea or something and challenging the way they've always done it, then they want to get defensive, because that threatens them personally, and they have to defend it, because they don't, then they're going to think, well, what's up with me that I can't, So yeah, for sure. And we're humans are that way. We don't like change. It feels better just coast along and not don't do anything wrong, and just yeah. But I think you got a point there.
I saw a statement in the chat room that I really like, and it says, there's a time and place to accept criticism on a project, though. You can always say that this is already in the works. I'll take that into account for next time. And I agree with that. If it's too far along in the process already, then instead of instead of being defensive, um, just saying, hey, we're already past that point to turn around now. We've got to see this through fruition, and see what's going to become of this, and we will learn and take those things into account next time. And I hope you're on the planning team that's going to help me get this done next time, so that we can remember this and try to see if we can incorporate it into our project. I think that that's really good. But I do think that we have to also, if we're not beyond that point, and we know we're not beyond that point, then we do need to look at it and say, well, this actually could work out better for us if we were to use bacon in our green beans instead of just having green beans fresh out of the can. And so, that was a pretty cheesy example, but basically, if there is still time to make small adjustments that may help the progression, then don't be defensive. I can tell you, I've managed the San Antonio Scottish Rite website for quite some time. And in fact, we lost our website for a long time, and the person that built it before would not give it back. So I started from scratch. And because the Scottish Rite was having a tough time at the time, I took on the financing of it and producing it, creating and producing it um, from the beginning. And last year, I guess, yeah, last year, um, the board wanted to add somebody else on. Now I had somebody previously that was working on the project with me that he moved out of state and was no longer affiliated with us or anything, and I was the only one that was doing stuff, and really it was half-ass. Talk about mediocrity, right? And this other brother comes in, and I got totally defensive about the whole situation. And it was like, oh no, you're not going to mess with my stuff that I created. And then I realized, oh, I'm being just like the jackass that wouldn't give us the website from before, and which caused us to have to completely do this. And I had to step back and allow that person to take some space within my comfort zone and help. And it has been a tremendous help. And I think that's probably the best example of my personal defensiveness when it comes to Freemasonry. Is there's been a lot of projects over the years that I've started, and I've been afraid to let go of them because I'm afraid that that person's not going to either not going to do it the way I want it done, which is bad to think about it in that way, or they're going to change it so drastically that it won't resemble the vision that the board and I had originally in creating it. And so, but there is a space for that person to be there to help and create and be and just make it that much better. And so it took me a little bit to get there, but I'm there now and willing to, you know, share that space again. But that's a biggie, and I think that that's what we deal with a lot of these past masters or secretaries in our lodges and stuff like that. They've been doing it for so long. Secretaries, the average lifespan of a secretary in a lodge, um, not not in physical death, but which most of them, you know, pray for it by that time. But the average lifespan of a secretary is about 7 years in a lodge. And so you get this young guy that's coming in to help, and he's in it for with good intentions. But that secretary, man, they've got the stranglehold on that lodge, and they don't want to let it go. And that can be an issue. That can be a real issue. And I see past masters doing that as well. And that just goes back to,
Okay, but what if you were the world's greatest secretary?
I
What are you
know,
supposed to do?
I know. I ask myself that every day. In your
But like
case, I
if
mean, it could be easily overlooked, but for me,
I mean
there's no way.
I mean if you're absolute perfection, like how could anybody
Yes, yes, I concur. But you know, it. I also see that with past masters is and well, and you see it when you got the young guys coming into lodge that instead of asking the lodge, you're expecting the lodge to just do what you want them to do instead of asking the lodge for the support. And that's kind of the same thing. There's a lot of defensiveness there because you know you've got this young guy who his intentions may be pure as gold, but you know he's jumping into your space. He's in your sandbox now, and you don't want to give him all the you don't want to let him use your pail and scoop to make those sandcastles. So I mean that's where, you know, when we were talking previously about the criticism and stuff and contempt. A lot of young guys that come in, and I was one of them, and I'm still one of them in some cases. And a lot of young guys will come in and they'll be critical, super critical of the way things are being done at this time because, face it, I'm Gen X, man. I'm I didn't grow up in the same world that these young guys grew up in. They know technology 20 times better than I know. I'm pretty good at what I do, but I am not what these guys are. And I'm the guy that's afraid of AI. That's because I've seen Terminator. I know how it ends. But, you know, that's that's a whole nother story. We'll go that direction some other day. But, you know, that defensiveness kicks in because the young guys come in, young bucks trying to prove themselves, and sometimes it's a kickback just for kickback's sake. It's not even a valid kickback because we have to look at what their intention is. Anybody else?
Just one last point. When it comes to defensiveness, the other thing that I've seen, and somebody touched on it briefly. I don't remember. Maybe it was you. I don't remember. But oftentimes, especially if they're the presiding officer, and I'm talking about whether it's a Masonic lodge or um, any of the other orders or something like that, is they the person, whether they acknowledge it or not, is in over their head, basically. And so a lot of times they do that defensiveness because they know that they are not ready for whatever office they're in. They're marginally, maybe not. To be honest, some of them are just simply not intelligent enough, and so you'll see that defensiveness. And if you question anything that they're doing, they want to shut it down because they're like, I've already figured this out. I don't no don't let anybody say anything. I got it. I'm in charge, so don't question anything I say. So in that case, if somebody, especially if they are leading your organization, and you see that kind of defensiveness, it seems an overreaction. Like you're just suggesting something, and they're like they're trying to shut you down immediately. More than likely, it's probably because they're feeling overwhelmed and they're feeling in over their head. And so, when it comes to that, you can kind of take a step back, um, realize that one person in 1 year, um, unless they do something really egregious, is not going to sink your organization. So you kind of step back and you minimize their impact. You try and work with them. They are in charge. Listen to what they have to say. Follow whatever directives they have, as long as it's not against the Constitution or illegal or something like that. But realize that some people, if they're in that position, there's no sense in trying to convince them otherwise, because they can't process it. They don't understand. They're in a place that they probably shouldn't have been put, and this is their defense to that, is to be overly defensive.
Yeah, and insecurities creates defensiveness
It's
big time.
insecurity. There you
Yeah.
go. Insecurity. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that insecurity does come from being overwhelmed at times, and also being the youngest guy in a lodge of old guys. That in itself can make you insecure because these guys have been around the block several times around, and they do have a lot of wisdom to offer. But even though it's short-sighted wisdom sometimes, kind of like I was describing with the website, it's sometimes the young guys do have great things to offer. Sometimes we just have to um, let them try. And like Jason said, minimize the impact, because usually and that goes along, that goes right back to the lodge culture thing. If it's the lodge culture to be democratic and vote on everything, then you usually don't have as much of that, because by time the master gets up to the master's position, the master station, he already knows that he's got to run everything by the lodge, and it's all done by a vote. It's usually when the lodges are misrun and you've got two or three guys showing up, they've run off everybody else, and these guys are just making all the decisions as they go all the time. Instead of having actual elections, they say, okay, you're going to be, worshipful master this year, you're going to be senior warden this year, you're going to be junior warden, and if we can get somebody to show up, we'll make them Tyler. That, but they do that for several years, and you get a few young guys in, and it's hard for them to let go of that control. That short-sightedness sets in. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think you touched on some key points, Dennis. You were talking about your Generation X, as a representative of the millennials. I think it might be a little bit of a misnomer, because we miss the term Generation Y, and I know that myself and a lot of people my age, when we come into an organization such as a Masonic Lodge, or I've seen it. I was both public sector and private sector, fire and EMS, in South and now Southeast Texas. Um, people in my generation always need to know why we do something this way, and that answer of, because it's always been done that way, it just doesn't quite fly for a lot of people in my age bracket. But I tell you, one thing I have found that both Masons and firefighters have in common is that there's two things that they don't like, and that is change and the way things are.
And that's, and that's an excellent point right there. The why. Getting the buy-in is very important when you're trying to move mountains in a lodge. Getting the buy-in from everyone around you is important. So, and I think that it happens a lot less often when people get rushed to the east, um, once they skip chairs and stuff and get straight into the east. Getting the buy-in is a lot more foreign to them. um, it was it
Yeah,
was
so it's something that I've had to temper, just my personal desire to know why we do everything this way. And a lot of times I've noticed that it causes a little bit of friction. So I do my best to, ask those questions in private, and we want to best agree, but um, that's the hard part, right? And that's learning, and that is the other side of this same key point. One of one of your four horsemen that we're talking about, right, is being able to have that conversation, and do it quietly, and ask those questions quietly, and hope that the more experienced brothers can offer that counsel also quietly.
right. Yes, and not come across, whining and complaining when we're asking those questions, because that's another thing that my generation doesn't like, and it it's definitely, not something that the guys older than me like. I know that for sure. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and the why is an important factor for any lodge to be successful in anything that they want to take on. And I think that goes back to where we've talked in the past about having a vision statement for your lodge, and everything you do is according to that vision. It aligns with that vision for your lodge. Your lodge knows what it wants to be and do in this organization. It knows what type of a culture it wants to have based off of that vision. And then everything that you decide on in the lodge, any charities that you do, any I don't know, we'll just stick with charities. So any charities that you do should align with that vision. It's kind of like Oso Naval Lodge. We will accept applications from everybody, but we mainly solicit the JROTC because those are young cadets that are trying to get into places like A&M, which is the big school down in Corpus, and it's an even bigger program up in Bryan College Station, and so the things that we try to do, we try to funnel them to align with our vision, and then the answering of the why is not quite as hard to do. Anybody else on that? Golly, you guys are just wearing me out tonight. Why do I even do this anymore? Not just kidding. All right, so now here's one last takeaway for this one, for defensiveness. If both sides of whatever it is work in charity towards each other, in a charitable manner towards each other, which is which I believe is our true charity in Freemasonry, by giving your brother the benefit of the doubt in everything that's going on, remembering that brother is there because he wants to be a part of something bigger than himself. And if he's mentioning something, it's because he wants to contribute. So I think that when we come to the table, peace and harmony is realizing and humbling ourselves to the understanding that the guy on the other side of this debate loves the lodge just as much as I do. He cares about Freemasonry just as much as I do, as he understands it. It doesn't have to be exactly how I understand it. If we were all exactly alike, then it would just be a stagnant organization that frankly I wouldn't even be a part of, because I need that challenge and debate and growth. But ultimately, if we humble ourselves to each other, then it removes the opportunity and the reason for defensiveness, and it allows a conduit for us to be able to have those conversations and discuss the why. I've always told everyone that I'm willing to change my mind on anything. You just have to give me a compelling enough reason to do it. So, like what you're saying, Brother Archer, answering that why is a big deal. It's a big deal. So I think that's a good point. All right. So here's one of the here's one of the biggest ones, in my opinion, that works against us, and this is the fourth horseman, and it's stonewalling. Blocking out others because you simply disagree. You stop the process of communication, you just walk away and say forget it. You pack up your toys and go home just because you're not getting your way. Or we pack I got to stop pointing at you guys. I'm not just pointing at you guys. I'm pointing at me too at the same time. We pack up our toys and go home. We just because we don't get our way, and because somebody wants to do a charitable event that we're not in alignment with, we don't believe is with our value, the way that we value Freemasonry, it doesn't mean that we just pack up our toys and go home. We should still be there to support our brothers. Anybody got anything on that? That's a big one.
I do. I think that in a lot of respects, that mindset of, well, if I can't have it my way, I'm just not going to play no more, is it's not just a failure on our part. I mean, that is obviously the biggest part. Is, it's all on the individual, but there also needs to be a mechanism by which the disagreeing brothers should be able to sit down and, oh, I don't know, maybe utilize some of those liberal arts and sciences we go on and on about, particularly rhetoric and logic, and utilize those particular arts and sciences to find what may or may not wind up being a compromise position where everyone can be happy and keep their toys in the sandbox and keep coming back and keep playing. That's my 2 cents.
That's good. A lot of brothers forget that those are part of one of our degrees. Some of the most important parts of our degrees. Anybody else?
Yeah, and I think you you need to distinguish between if you it's one thing to have a legitimate disagreement to where maybe we want to or we want to start a scholarship program and we're going to hold raffles to raise money for it, and they're following the law like they're supposed to. But for you, you don't necessarily feel like the lodge should be involved in that. Well, they're doing nothing wrong. It's a lodge decision. You may not necessarily agree with it. You don't necessarily have to, you know, uh, fully. Well, I even though I don't like it, I'll take some tickets and I'll sell them. Or maybe you don't necessarily have to go that far, but it wouldn't. That to me is not a a legitimate reason to say, well, now I'm just going to walk away. It's, you know what, the lodge made a decision. If they're going to do things like they're supposed to, then that's fine. Now, conversely, if they say, well, we're going to hold a raffle and but brothers come first, so what we're going to do is we're going to hold a raffle and then we're going to distribute it to our members because we need help. Okay, well, that's illegal. That's not something you should be doing. So at that point, to me, that would be, what they're, whether I'm just saying, ultimately, if you just, walk away, I'm just saying, I mean, you probably should report it, but whatever. I mean, that's an individual's decision. But the point is that unless they're doing something illegal, immoral, or unethical, and it's just simply you don't agree, that is not a reason to walk away from your lodge. You know, um, so I mean, to me that to me is that's where you evaluate whether you should whether you should step away or not.
Well, and I would go even further to say that rather than step away, if you see the lodge doing something illegal, immoral, or unethical, that's not a reason to walk away. That's a reason to jump right up on your hind feet and call that negative behavior what it is, and and stop it. Make it cease. That no longer needs to happen. That's not what we're here for. You know, there's yeah, no, that's it. Just that's not what we're here for. If you find yourself in a position like that, then by all means, you have to stop it. You have to. It endangers our charters. It endangers our status as 501(c), C3, whatever the designation is for a nonprofit organization, and that kind of behavior can't be tolerated.
I agree. And I've actually been in that position before, to where um, I don't even know if I was a member of the lodge yet or not. I don't think I was, but a lodge said that, we're going to do this certain thing. I'm not going to go into details because we're not trying to get any charters pulled around here. But a lodge said that they were going to do a particular thing, and it was brought up by the treasurer to do this particular thing. And I stood up and I said, guys, that's money laundering. We cannot do that. That is against the law without a doubt. And that person looked over at me and and tried to make me look like the fool and said, "Are you an attorney?" And I said, "Well, no, but I happen to know 10 of them that are sitting on jurisprudence with Grand Lodge and in civil law with Grand Lodge, and I can call any of them right now if you want me to in the middle of this meeting and ask them the question for you if I need to." And then, a brother stood up across the the lodge that was an attorney, and he said, "No, that's money laundering 101." And and it got squashed. But we have to be willing to stand up on in situations like that. But Jason's right. If it's something that is not gonna put the lodge in jeopardy, and it's not going to you know impact the lodge negatively, like, telling the lodge to invest $50,000 in a specific, you know, blue splash monkey Bitcoin or whatever, that may or may not be there next week, not being frivolous with their money or anything like that. If you're not doing something to hurt the lodge, then yeah, then just let it play out. It might end up being a good idea. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. So we need to make sure and stand up for what's right. And stonewalling, stopping a conversation because you disagree is never okay. It's never okay. That's what we're here for. Like Byron said before, it's one of our most important uh, lessons that we learn is rhetoric, and that's how you can discuss with civil discourse and get down to the nitty gritty without being offensive, and by showing brotherly love and affection and realizing that brother cares about this just as much as you. They just didn't realize that it would get us everybody in trouble or whatever, or didn't realize, maybe they didn't think about that angle that could have opened them up to liability, and no matter what it is, so um, yeah, we can't just pack up our toys and go home. Now, I know that sometimes we do have to make a shift in what we're doing, though, um, and that's only if it's a long term issue that you're dealing with. I can certainly see going to a different lodge and becoming a member of a lodge that more aligns with what you believe in. They have a culture that you would thrive on, instead of feeling like it's an uphill battle every time you walk into lodge, and that you're getting the stink eye from people because you've disagreed with things that have been said and this and that. Nobody should have to feel that way. This is a volunteer organization. We want to be the we want to be the very best that we can be. Anybody else got anything? Hello?
I know you spoke on it multiple times, referring to taking people to OLT. Um, I've been in a position the last couple of years where I've gone by myself as the only one from my lodge, but met some other brothers from the district there, and being able to bring back some of those new ideas. And I'm hitting the same brick walls in the lodge. And I guess a brick wall is a bad term, but it's what you had referenced, right? Some of the things that you see that the brothers aren't going to be as receptive because you're proposing new ideas. And I think you know, Jason hit the nail on the head, and so did Byron. When we're looking at changing things up, maybe doing something a little bit different, as long as it's not immoral, illegal, or going to cause loss of value to the lodge. I think that we should always give them that extra idea, especially when they're going to those meetings where they can fellowship and learn different ways to do things, like the OLT, like talking to people at Grand Lodge and getting some of those new ideas. Typically at my home lodge, we do a gun raffle every year. Somebody brought up wanting to raffle something else off, and then they kind of hemmed and hawed. Most of the brothers hemmed and hawed around about it, and it never went anywhere this year. But I think next year we've already got the plans to have those alternate items for the people that maybe want to participate and donate to our local scholarship fund, but aren't necessarily into firearms. So being able to have that option, that those extra added values, to assist in these charitable endeavors is a great promise, great idea.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, that's a tough one right there. It, you know, the the fundraisers are always a real big one for lodges to get stuck on, I think, because it in many cases they know, what's worked in the past, and guns typically sell, but at the same time, not everybody wants to contribute to that. So why not have, like a fishing package option to go along with it? Um,
You you know what else sells? Meat. A half calf travel goes real good.
that's what. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Josh, because that was the very first raffle that was ever done in Goliad. Mike donated a half a calf, and I donated the freezer to put in it, and then Roy and who was it? They built a, a little smoker um, pit, and that was our very first raffle. I mean, it turned out great. We sold a lot of tickets. People loved it, and being that we all donated to it, it was a clean $3,000 that we made on our very first fundraiser at Goliad. That's another good one. And I like what you said, Brother Atcher, about the OLT. That brings up um, a very good topic of discussion on when it comes to um, stonewalling and being defensive. And I mean, you name it. Any of the four horsemen that we've talked about can come out with officer leadership training. I remember when I went to my first one, we learned several things about lodge decorum and different things. And when I came back, I had mentioned to someone that, maybe this should be this other way. And then one of the older brothers, I don't think he even shows up to Goliad anymore. He's very prominent in Victoria though. But the very first thing he did is stood up and said, you guys always come back from OLT thinking you know everything. It's always the same. And it's like, come on, man. Isn't that why we go to OLT? So that we can learn new things and, try to do the best that we can with what, we're given. I mean, isn't that the whole purpose of it? But it never fails. You come back with great ideas from other, people around the state that have had success with these things. But because it wasn't such and such brother's idea that always does the raffle, then it's not a good idea this year. So I think that's a great one. And whether it's based off of whatever the raffle's going to be, or the education that's going to happen in the lodge, or making sure that there's warm meals every lodge meeting. There's just, and making sure that we follow proper parliamentary procedure that our Grand Lodge puts out for conducting our meetings. You name it. I mean, officer leadership training has so much value that we should be bringing back to our lodge. But then when you say something about it, and a lot of times it's from the past masters. Oh, I don't need that. I'm past master 6 times. I don't need that. Well, you might not have had to be past master 6 times if we were doing a little bit better. So maybe we can try to do something a little bit different this time. And maybe you won't ever have to sit in that chair again. Zach has hit the stage.
Uh-oh.
You got something for us?
Hey guys. I apologize. I don't know what you're discussing. I was busy elsewhere.
That's all right. I understand.
So you got a question? Fire away.
We've been talking about, the four, there's this thing called the 4 horsemen of a failed marriage. And it'll, if you do certain things in a marriage, that it will cause it to fail. And I was listening to this today, and I was thinking, man, this really does apply to Freemasonry as well. It can apply to anything. Insert.
Well, the number one reason that people leave Masonry is because of personnel issues. So,
Yep.
I mean, it makes sense that it would.
Yes. Yes. Because it is a pretty much of a personal relationship, and with not just the lodge, but with the brethren as well. And so we have to continuously work on how we manage those relationships.
Yeah, I can see a lot of things that would cause you to have marital issues would cause you to have launch issues. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. We brought up a few different topics: constant criticism, contempt, meaning feeling better than those around you, defensiveness, and then stonewalling. Those are the four horsemen of the apocalypse for a marriage, and those are the 4 topics that we brought up. If you have anything on any 4 of those that.
Give them to me one at a time.
Constant criticism.
Constant criticism. All right. So if you are going through the line and you do something wrong, right? You spend money without the lodge's approval and then ask them to pay for it after the fact, which is no bueno. Or whatever. We have a bad habit of some people get in their mind that person, that you got to watch that person, and that causes strife. So we can't. Sometimes people make mistakes. If everything is open and upfront about it, it's all learning experience. I mean, that's what we're all doing, is learning, right? So we don't need to be overly critical of our brethren when they mess up on things like that. It's one of the biggest challenges in Masonry is where is the line between, people growing and improving, and that person needs to be kicked out, and I tend to be pretty generous on the growing and improving side of it. Some people are, oh, that guy did that one time, let's fight him forever type stuff. Disharmony, right? That's all about disharmony. The constant criticism is just they get against somebody, and they go, they just keep being against, and we need to not be about the person, but be about the idea. If you're, even if someone is on the other side, um, they can have good ideas and things that might work. And it might be something that your lodge has never done and you don't particularly want to do, but maybe they and a few of the other guys want to do it. Um, go to a baseball game or whatever. Let them go. Let them do their thing. It could grow or it could die. That's part of it. Step back and let it happen. Too many people have this idea of what masonry is, and there is no other. You know,
I've fallen into
but
that rut
masonry is a
myself
pretty,
several times.
yeah. Uh, anyway, constant criticism. Yeah, that can ruin a marriage. That can ruin
Yes.
masonry. Uh,
Well,
it,
and contempt, the next one, contempt, when you feel like you're better than someone because of the little things that they've done along the way in their learning process, um, that goes along with what you were saying as well. Never forgiving them for what they did. Just continuously thinking they're always going to be wrong. Um, that just means that you think that you're better than them, in my opinion.
well, all of the guys coming up through the line, the past masters and stuff, need to be mentors for and help them grow and think about things and how they work and how they won't work. Um, and if you're trying to help the person grow, that's a whole different attitude than contempt for what they're doing.
Yes.
Just offer your advice, offer your thoughts. That people come up with all kinds of ideas, and some of them are bad. You can very gently say, that's not going to work because blah blah blah. And if they try and it fails, so be it. You gave your 2 cents. You don't need to be contemptuous about it at all.
Agreed. The next one on that was, so that takes care of two of them. The next one on it was defensiveness, and then the last one is stonewalling. Those can both play into each other, and I've seen it many times, and it's never good for the individuals or the lodges.
We have a number of lodges. I think that the guys that are really just a fraternal only organization. They enjoy hanging out with each other. They do some ritual, but for the most part, it's not entirely masonry. I mean, it is because they have the opening and closing, and they do stuff, but they don't do anything beyond that. They're very happy being a social club type thing, and that's okay until you're not growing because of it, right? And everyone's over 75 or 80, uh, and you start passing away and it dies. Why? Because new people joined, they wanted other stuff, and you stonewall them. You're just like, we don't want to do that. You know, we we don't want to have any talks about the EA degree. We don't want to, we don't want to, do this, that, or the other. Because they've got it in their mind what masonry is, and they're not, you know, we need to allow people to do what they want within reason, anything that's okay. If they got an idea, if they want to all go do a social thing, let them go do a social thing. If they want to do some educational thing and you're not interested, so what? Let them do an educational thing. You don't have to participate in it. It, on the Grand Lodge, there's lots of stonewalling, uh, of course, because those are bigger things about where the whole state goes. On a local lodge, they're trying to keep it going the way that they have. And I get that, but a little openness never hurts anything.
Agreed. I agree 100%. A little openness and a little humility. You can't go
Yeah.
wrong.
I mean, I've had bad ideas. That's okay. I'm always upfront on everything in my thinking. Somebody comes back and comes up with a different angle, and I change my mind. It happens, you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
No one needs to get hurt feelings about it. Maybe
Right.
that's back to the defensiveness. So sometimes people have an idea and no one buys into it, and they can take that personally. You probably shouldn't take it entirely personally. You've got to get buy-in on whatever you're doing, or it's not going to happen. Or it's going to happen because you do the entire thing start to finish, and then you get bitter about that because no one helped you because you had to do the whole thing.
Right.
Probably shouldn't.
And yeah, you get bitter because you did the whole thing and nobody patted you on the back when it was completed.
That's right.
Those
That's
sorry,
right.
no good Nicks. Don't they realize how valuable I am? Why am I not being recognized? I can't tell you how many times I've run into that.
Yeah,
Well, there is a lot of people out there that believe that they have saved the lodge and kept it running for all these years, and the truth is they've run it into the ground. But they don't recognize that. You know, the cause for the loss in membership and the fact that they can't retain anybody that they bring in is an outside influence, right? The world is causing this, not what we're doing.
yeah, that's a big one right there, is that people blaming social media and TV and this and that. And
People don't have time to do masonry anymore. Yeah, guys, we got lodges that are growing.
yep.
You know, you're not one of them. So maybe maybe you want to think about that. I mean, we got plenty of lodges that are growing.
Right.
Everyone worked like them, right?
Well, and that's another thing. It's interesting that you say that, because I've heard the rebuttal many times that, big city lodge versus, small lodges. And the reality is that for every one lodge growing in a big city, there's 10 around them that are failing, because just because that other one's growing because they did something right and people wanted to be a part of it.
If you map out the growing lodges, they are not all big city lodges. There's plenty of rurals that are doing very well.
Yeah, we've had some down here in South Texas. We have.
Yeah.
Daniel Dutton, you joined us. You made it. You're here.
Thank you for the shout out. Yes, I am. Glad to be here tonight.
So, what kind of wisdom do you have to give on these thoughts? I mean, they're obviously all marketing and sales related, right?
I think there's two things that I would just add in, right? Like I I think not everything has to be for everyone, right? But you do have to know who you're wanting to attract, because we're going to attract what we put out there, right? So if you want a lodge that is a fish fry lodge, do fish fries. If you want a lodge that is an esoteric lodge and esoterically minded and getting esoteric people, do that more. You can have both, right? Both can exist, but you have to. I think it goes back to Brother Hassan. What he was saying is buy-in, right? You can't do this alone, because and I think Byron also said this. You're gonna get burnt out and you're gonna be grumpy, and you're gonna be grumpier than you have to be because you tried to do it all yourself, right? If you have other people helping you, because then they take ownership. Then they say, "Oh, this is not just somebody's pet project. This is what we do." And culture takes time. Traditions take time, but somebody started every single tradition at some point, for the good or for the bad. So, if your tradition is to have a festive board once a year, somebody had to start it 1 year. It doesn't get to 125 years because nobody started it. But that also means people liked it enough to keep it going for a longer period of time. So you have to have buy-in, and you're going to attract what you put out there. And if you don't put it out there on social media or in the newspaper, or however you're getting messages out to those people who you want to invite, and if you're not inviting them, they're not going to come, right? So that's the other big thing here, is you have to put it out there somehow that you are doing these things in the community. It could be word of mouth. It could be on social media. It could be in a paper ad somewhere, if you still do that, right? If your town has a paper that does that, do it. But if people don't know, they're never going to come because they don't know. And in addition to all of that being said, if someone asks a question, if you answer with come to dinner and you don't explain more than that, they aren't going to know what come to dinner means. They don't know that you can't invite them more than that. It's not on them, it's on us to explain it well.
Nice. And as you were talking, I was thinking about that internally and externally. So, if whoever we're planning to attract, we need to make sure and market to those people. But like with getting the information out to the members of your lodge, now that'd be a pretty pricey thing, I guess, for Arlington. Although with the size of Arlington and all the membership and everything, y'all could probably afford it, because it's all relative when you think about it. But like Goliad,
Well,
we were
we
realized
don't do newspaper articles anymore because nobody's on those.
right.
We have done a little bit of Facebook boosting for events, not much on that. Times change. You can't advertise in the newspaper anymore. That isn't going to work. Um, Facebook almost isn't working anymore either, because we tend to bring in people in their 30s and 40s, and 40s maybe, but 30s really aren't into Facebook as much. So you gotta appeal to them. I can't appeal to them very well, but we have younger guys in the lodge, and we need to encourage them to share every cool thing that they do. You know, I went and did this, and it was all, like we gave all these teachers all these awards. So we gave scholarships, or we went shooting down at the range on Saturday, or we had a, pig hunt or whatever, share that stuff on Facebook, not, not necessarily on Facebook, on Twitter or whatever they're using,
Yeah,
Instagram.
Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
That's one
Brother
of the
Fluff,
things.
he appeals to a different group,
Yes.
but his group is more likely to join than my group at this point. Although
Right.
there's still some my age, but 30s and 40s is where we get most of them these days.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because I think that could be a valuable lesson that Grand Lodge could offer, is a program teaching us what is the latest technology and how to set it up. Because guys like me, man, I know it's out there, but golly, how do I set it up to where it's going to be the easiest on me to use? But then like I was talking earlier, I don't know if you were on yet. I know Daniel wasn't on yet. We've got a new brother, at San Antonio Scottish Rite that's helping me with the website and social media and stuff like that. And his thing is he's always posting reels and Instagram and this and that. I mean, he's good at it. He's a younger brother. He's good at it. That's what he does. But me, I'm just not that guy. So I had to make space to allow him in to be able to do that, because at first I was kicking and screaming, but I see the value and the error of my ways, and now he's an integral part of what we do. I really need to learn from him personally, but I think that would be a legitimate program for Grand Lodge to put out to teach guys, how to use today's, and it'll have to change over the years, how to use today's marketing, how to market in today's world. And because it's the guys like us that are supporting it right now, and Gen Xers, and maybe we're not the right guys to do that.
Now, I
And I
mean,
think
we still appeal to our group, right?
Yeah.
They appeal to their group. That's all. So
Right.
everything I do just about's on Facebook. If you've seen my Facebook,
Yep.
I post a lot of stuff on there, and it's all public. Everyone can see all the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
We got this young brother, our senior steward right now, making these incredible reels, and they're like teasers, and I mean it's great stuff. I don't know how to do that, but I absolutely encourage him to. And he's reaching a little bit different audience. Turns out that his audience is joining more than mine at this point. So I'm definitely encouraging it.
Yeah.
And the problem with having Grand Lodge tell people that, like, you can't just go and put stuff on Instagram or TikTok, right? You got to have followers. It's your friends that it's going to reach. If I go and post anything on TikTok, I have no friends there. No one's going to see it. It doesn't
Exactly.
work like a web page or something. Now, the web page and people expressing interest in getting through, we need to improve that funnel, Grand Lodge wise, because that's kind of always going to be there, I think. Some kind of method of how to be a Mason, beamason.org.com or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's
That
your owned
funnel
that's your
needs to
owned
be,
real estate. You own that real
yeah,
estate. You're not just renting it from the social media
right.
platforms.
But we still get, the 2-3% that we get of our membership, by communicating to people that we know, whether it's people at work, whether it's people on Facebook or whatever. Uh, we have this pretty steady over multi decades ratio of how much people bring in of their friends. So encourage the young guys to get on there and share everything that's cool that they're doing, show their excitement.
Exactly.
It helps.
Instead of reprimanding them for doing it, which I have seen in the past. I don't see it quite as much anymore, but I've seen people just flat out be angry that we were using Facebook and stuff. That's we've got to encourage these guys. It's our job as past masters to encourage these guys.
I mean, that's what absolutely that's the biggest trick of being a leader, is sparking excitement in the guys coming up behind for whatever the topic is. Right? You want to honor the teacher some night. You find some guy that's a little bit thinks that's a great idea, and you nurture the fool out of that. Right?
Yep.
You find a guy that can do reels on TikTok or whatever, and they're great. You nurture, you encourage, you do, you tell them it's great, and you do everything you can to spark that.
Yes, I
That's
agree.
what us older geezers do.
Yes, I
Encourage
agree.
others.
I agree. That's the best thing we can do for our fraternity sometimes is as the older guys is just be their cheerleader. Golly, Uh, somebody said it. Well, Jason said it earlier, and he's the one who left. I wonder. No, there he is, up in his in his disco room. But he had mentioned earlier that the everybody loves a pat on the back, and a attaboy and a good job, and so you're absolutely right. We got to nurture that. When somebody knows how to do something and knows how to do it well, we have to nurture it. And now we may have to create guidelines so that it stays, you know, within a respected space. Um, I mean, even for years, Justin Jones was our editor in chief, and he kept me out of Title V, man. That was his job, was to keep me out of Title V. So yeah, we we need to encourage these guys and maybe help set some guidelines on staying out of trouble. It's our job to encourage them and help them stay out of trouble in the process.
Figures you go right to the staying out of trouble, but yes.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
there are a few things more important than staying out of trouble. Let's just be honest here, you know. And you're right. Everybody needs a cheerleader, not just the young guys. We all need a cheerleader. And if it's just saddening to me that Dennis is just doesn't have the legs for it.
Man, that's just not even funny.
I
I'll,
thought it was hilarious.
I think we'll
Okay.
get enough
Okay, well,
dad
you
jokes.
haven't seen him in a kilt yet, so you don't know.
I thought it was
I
pretty cool.
have a sexy man there.
Well,
Byron has a great sense of humor.
it's not easy being me. But I think that I think that's what it all boils down to with what we've been talking about tonight is support and being a brother to our brother. If we can just get that down, we'll be okay, I think. Because you're right, we do have some younger guys coming in. When I was hot and heavy at it with the website and Facebook and all that for Goliad and Victoria and all the surrounding lodges, I was the young guy in the group, and I created all those things to help. Not everybody was for it. Heck, Goliad, we still use a phone tree to where we have a system that dials out to all the members to tell them when things are happening because our area utilizes that more than younger areas. Our brethren appreciate it and they like to stay dialed in with that. But I was the one that kicked all that off originally and met with a lot of resistance trying to get all that done, and I had to take care of it all myself because the lodge just wasn't interested in pursuing it. And now here we've got Josh Kovar on here with us right now, one of the inner circle members, and he's the district communication officer for 36, and he's taking care of that stuff now. Which, man, I'm just ecstatic for that we have somebody capable to manage that to where I don't have to let me manage the things that I need to be managing today instead of worrying about that. So I support.
I don't know about capable, but I try.
Well, that's 9/10 of the law right there.
You can just tell us when all the degrees are. That's a good start.
Yeah.
There's so many friggin' degrees, and they're just not published well enough.
Yeah, there's a lot, and that's part of it. I know they have that conversation with the DCOs and DIs every year on what they should be doing, and all the whole team really, DEOs, on what they should be doing. But on the local level, we need to be encouraging them to do their job and to do it well because you are capable, Josh. You do a great job, and I hadn't seen emails like I get now. I get them every week on what's happening in the week throughout the whole district, and I hadn't seen that in years. And man, I'm grateful.
And at first, the secretaries giving the DCOs the information is the big deal. But once the DCO starts to get some information and put it out there, and it goes to everybody with a list of all the degrees going on, for the month or for the week, and then the secretary who didn't give him anything says, "Oh, mine's not on there." All of a sudden, he starts wanting to volunteer it up. So just getting something rolling. No one wants to be left out. Hey, all these other lodges are doing things. I'm doing too, but I'm not getting the recognition because I'm not on this email because I didn't tell it.
Yep.
That's the biggest problem is trying to get information from everybody. Because
yep. And so if you're putting it out there, more people will join on to that because they don't want to be left out.
Well, and that's the thing is I send a message out every Sunday afternoon about 1-2 o'clock and say what we got going on, and I'm still waiting for one worshipful master to text me back, knowing that there's nothing happening in his lodge this week, but it's still nice to have the acknowledgement that he got my text message to say that, yeah, there's something going on. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. secretaries have their issue of communicating with members, and DCOs have their issues communicating with secretaries. So
This is true. This is true. I don't always get it right. That's for sure. There's many times I let things fall through the cracks that I shouldn't. But I
herding
am trying.
cats.
But I am trying.
Dennis, I thought you walked on water and were absolutely perfect. You're over here ruining your perfect image.
I don't walk, buddy. I dance. I dance on water.
Please don't encourage him.
I'm just waiting for his head to explode because it got too big.
I know,
Jason.
right? Yeah, my cap's feeling a little tight right now. I need to watch it.
Oh, we can probably fix that.
Yeah, let's go back to the legs from earlier and just dish you on that for a little while and see if that doesn't bring you down some.
Actually, my legs are coming back. My sea legs are coming back. This week's going to be a very busy week for me traveling. I'm going to Corpus on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and then we've got the festive board up in Dallas on Friday, and the symposium on Saturday that I'll be presenting at there. And so this week will be my first time of really traveling and getting out there. I've traveled
Since the
twice.
surgery.
Yeah, I've traveled twice since the surgery, but both times left me pretty weak. So this one's going to be a true testament on where I'm at for things. So pray for my sea legs, guys.
Roger that.
All right, so we're at that time to where we should go ahead and have our closing thoughts. We're going to have a visitor pop on here as soon as I turn off the live stream. So if you guys want to stay on afterwards, there's going to be a little bit of conversation after. And you too could have that experience as an inner circle member. If you were, you would be privy to the conversation we're going to have after we shut this sucker down. So first I'm going to go across my board as I see everybody. Jeff, what you got, brother?
Say Jeff.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, kind of exciting things going up here in Kansas. We got next month a joint raising between Grand Lodge, the Prince Hall Grand Lodge, and the Kansas Grand Lodge. Each Grand Lodge is putting forth a fellow craft to be raised, and it's just gonna be an awesome time.
That's awesome.
I'm honored to be part of the trestle board on that, and it should be packed out. I've heard the Prince Hall does a pretty nice second section. They're doing the second section, we're doing the first section. So I'm interested to see how they do the second sections. It's gonna be really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to see something like that.
Is that a
All you
Prince
got to
Hall
do is
brother, or is that?
There'll be Prince Hall brother and a Kansas Grand Lodge brother, two fellow crafts being raised, one from each Grand Lodge. And it'd be a double raising put on by both Grand Lodges.
if I could travel, I would go to that in a heartbeat. That would be so amazingly cool.
Yeah, tell
Look forward
me.
to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got anything else?
Nope, that's about it.
All right. Now that was worth it right there. Just hearing that is encouraging and inspiring for me. It really is. That we have that kind of communication going on between the two Grand Lodges. That's encouraging to me. I like that. What you got, Larry? Turn on your mic.
Sorry about that. I'm just glad to be here, and I really missed it last week when we didn't have the Zoom call. But I'm glad we had it tonight, and everybody have a good week.
Well, I knew we had so many Bad Bunny fans on our show that we would take away from the halftime show, so I didn't want to draw from that spectacle going on.
Facts. Facts.
All right. Well, glad you're here, Larry. What you got, Jason?
Yeah, I think well, all the stuff we've talked about, a lot of it really did come down to humility. Whether it's listening to others, yeah, YouTube, Byron, and or taking other people's feelings into consideration, or trying to work with others to just have that humility to realize that you are not always the most you are not always the most important person. You're also not always the smartest person, and I think humility probably was touched on in all four of those points that you were talking about. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I concur. I concur. Zach, you want to give us your final thoughts on this?
Uh, we need to practice what we preach. We preach brotherly love.
Yes.
If we don't do it, we're going to lose people. If we do it, we'll keep people. Short and sweet.
Very nice. The first charity. The very first charity. Byron, you're up.
Well, I shook my fist at Jason earlier because he exactly said what I wanted to say. So much of this boils down to getting outside of yourself and being willing to acknowledge that while a brother may have a differing opinion from your own, that doesn't mean that that opinion is not valid, that it doesn't have worth, that it has no virtue, and that's where we need to really learn to practice, you know, our rhetoric and use our logical thinking brains rather than working off of our egos. And that's what I've got.
Nice. Tomas.
Well, most of what I see was this all goes back to ego, and you kind of need to, in my opinion, check your ego at the door, and that's about my only thoughts on it.
Nice. Yes, that's a big one. What you got, Josh? Mr. District Communications Officer,
Oh,
start
I'll keep.
communicating.
I'm gonna
Start.
start communicating. I've been trying to communicate all night long, but you've been interrupting me. No, I'm playing. No, I think it was a good conversation. A lot of good thinking points. I thoroughly enjoy the conversation with the brothers, and it gives you some things to think about to bring back to your home lodge or your lodge that you're a member of. So I enjoy it all. Thank you, brothers.
I agree, 100%. Jacob, Brother Atcher.
Yeah, I just want to echo what some of the other brothers have said. Ego is going to be the big killer. I appreciate this workshop in rhetoric, and I think that bringing in something like this that you noticed, Dennis, you noticed the connection there from this or seemingly unrelated topic and how we can apply it to our everyday lives, including masonry, stands as a testament that this might be one of those rare universal truths, because when it's universal, we can apply it anywhere we go. I've been thinking about how I can apply some of these things to my professional career, applying it to lodge, to my marriage, or to my relationship with my kids, all the above. Right? I mean, these things are universal truths, and I think that being able to talk about them and discuss them with the brothers here is beneficial. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Dutton. Double D.
I see you saved the best for last, Dennis. Um,
My
but
closer.
I guess my ego is a little too big there. I need to work on that, as others have said. I would think the big thing here too, Dennis, to me, other than the learnings of letting other people's insights and work be seen through us, but also like asking for help, building that coalition of brothers who maybe disagreed with you at one point, but in leveraging rhetoric to be able to say, this is why I feel this is important. Let me explain to you why this is important to me. Let me listen to you as to why that's important to you. Oh, I see it from a different point of view now. I'm now leveraging logic in that sense as well, right? But also saying, for the good of masonry, for the good of our lodge, we need to grow. We need to still grow. We need to still invite men. And I think that's the biggest thing to me is ultimately is an invitation, a personal invitation, um, is so huge. And being able to have a good understanding of, I want someone to come to my lodge because they're going to feel welcome here, right? I know I was talking with someone the other day and it came up that they had invited a friend to lodge and that person was like, I don't even know if I want to call these men brothers anymore because of the way that friend was treated when he came to visit, right?
Mm.
And that really hurt because I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like, if you're inviting people and they're coming to dinner or they're coming to a lunch group or they're coming to a book study or whatever it is, and they walk away going, why would I ever want to join? That's hugely reflective, not only upon us, and I don't mean to put negative business out at the end of this wonderful meeting, but I think that's part of it too, is when we invite someone, when we extend invitations, are we welcoming? Are we a place that people want to come to be part of? But also, are we even are we comfortable extending that invitation to our home lodge, to our lodge that we're members of? And if we're not, then why? What needs to change drastically to make that happen? And then, let's make those invitations. Let's get out of that a little bit and be able to say that and then be able to explain clearly why this is good for us, why what has changed in our lives because of masonry, and have those things in our back pockets so that way we know this is how we want to be perceived, and this is how we want to move forward. So I would just say ego is huge, but also being welcoming when people come in the door, and that we are, I mean, the number of people who we're attracting is directly tied to who we're inviting as well.
Wow, that's impactful. That and you know, talking about somebody wondering if golly, inviting somebody and then the person not being treated the way that they thought they should, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. Um, because we should be able to invite people to dinner with us and to the social events that we have and to the fish fries and things like that, and be confident that if we're not there, that to be confident that we don't have to be there constantly monitoring and being the only source of conversation for that person just to shelter them from some some uh, some other brethren or their actions or what have you. I mean, that's a problem, man. And we got to make sure that we deal with that. That's
And I didn't mean to be a downer, Dennis. I apologize on that.
no,
I don't
no.
thought there. So
I've seen that. I've seen that. And I had a brother say something extremely racial one time during one of our dinners, and there were several people that never came back after that. And that those were members that just didn't, they stopped coming. So that's that's something that we have to remember as well, that we can in practicing all these different the virtues that overcome all the four horsemen, in practicing the virtues of Freemasonry, um, you would think that we wouldn't have to have reservation on inviting people to have dinner with us. So I'm sorry that that has happened with you. Since I know that our lodge is very welcoming to people, and I think that that all boils down to, like I spoke about earlier, the lodge having the same vision and everybody being on board with that vision. You realize that in order to keep going, you ultimately do need new membership. It's not something that you constantly have membership drives or whatever trying to get people in, but you ultimately do need new membership. So just like Zach discussed it, usually the the members that have come in due to me are from my other circles in life, and I've met them in other circumstances, and they came into Freemasonry after coming and meeting the guys. If they didn't have a warm reception when after I had invited them to have dinner with us, then that could have been bad. We shouldn't have to worry about those things. But I think that ultimately we hit the nail on the head tonight, that ego it can be it's a motivator for men. We drive on ego. That's what keeps us going. That's what helps us to achieve the goals we want to achieve in life, is that ego or inner drive from the ego. But we do need to have that balance within that uh, ego, and understand humility, true humility, and being humble with our brothers, and with that first lesson of brotherly love and affection that Zach had spoke on as well. Those are, in fact, that's the main charity of Freemasonry, in my opinion. And I think that it's misinterpreted by many people, that the scholarships and all that kind of stuff is our charity. It's a form of charity, but our first charity is to each other, and being charitable to each other to help aid and assist them in not only Freemasonry but in life. So we need to make sure that we create a vision that fosters that type of an atmosphere, to where we care about our brothers in that regard. And then we can't go wrong when somebody comes and has dinner with us. We never have to worry about if we're there or not. Even if we end up being sick that night, they can still show up, and they're going to come in with the same welcoming reception that they would have had, even if it was us that was walking them through and taking them to meet each person in our lodge. I think there was a lot of good points tonight, and I'm really grateful for all the people that we have on this show, and I'm grateful for the brothers helping me out with the chat for the YouTube. I'm not very good at staying focused on what you're saying and then watching a chat at the same time. So I appreciate the brothers from the inner circle that step up and help me with that chat each week. I'm really grateful. But I'm grateful in general that y'all are here with me, because I am a foolish man in many regards, and it's the wisdom that you guys bring to the show that makes this such a value for me. And I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Brothers out there, well, friends and brothers, because we allow other people in. They usually don't enjoy these kind of conversations so much, but we enjoy non-Masons in the inner circle. But but brothers, if you want to be in the inner circle, number one, like and subscribe, but there's also a join button down there, and there's different levels of support that you can give to the show, and you'll automatically get free you'll get ad-free viewing on everything, and then you also get the behind the scenes reels that never make it to the YouTube channel. So you get to see everything that goes on, even our private meetings that we have, like our book club, which I apologize, brothers. last week would have normally been our book club, and this week I was so busy preparing for getting my stuff done for all the travels I have this week to do that I wasn't able to to have a separate book club this week. But we will do that this coming month in March. We'll do that for sure. So we have that book club. We also we're going to as I get better at editing, then I'm going to create a new process that these brothers helped me to come up with the idea of, and that is posing a thought at the beginning of the week, and then at the end of the week having a discussion on that thought based off of all the inner circle members' replies, and possibly even viewers as well, regular viewers as well. And then hopefully that'll be another extra added value. And then, of course, I added last week the opportunity for brothers that join at a certain level, then I will provide one-on-one mentoring through Zoom to help you in your journey if you need advice, if you need documents, things like that. As a matter of fact, I'm working right now on a new website to where the cloud for that website will be utilized just for documents for inner circle members. And so there's lots of cool things coming. But for the regular show, for the live stream, this is it. We're done. I'm going to, if you guys that are here on the show with me, you inner circle members want to stay on, we got a longtime friend and brother that's going to be back with us. So other than that, keep it between the points. Done so much.